Look, I don't think there was, I think you're right to say that there wasn't a lot of mainstream media discussion of Indigenous issues. So I think there was a bit in the last sort of week to 10 days, but it wasn't as big as the previous election campaign because we had the issue of the apology that was there as a very, very large and very live issue. But I don't think that reflects any lessening of effort in the area of Indigenous policy. I mean, I don't want tonight to sound like a rehash of the election campaign, so I'm not going to go through everything that was promised and everything that was done. But the establishment of the new representative body, the massive single, there's a single budget process now for the whole range of Indigenous policy, which means that health and housing and all of the things, education that have such a big impact on Indigenous communities actually get dealt with in the one area of decision making, which is a huge step forward in innovation. It means that health isn't blaming education. We're not saying we can't fix health until we've fixed housing, or we can't fix housing because education's a bigger priority. So the improved representation, the improved policy making, the actual delivery on the ground, the billions of dollars extra that are being invested in upgrading housing, upgrading schooling, upgrading health services, 17 new police stations in the Northern Territory. That doesn't sound like much when you're sitting in Surrey Hills in Sydney, but nobody reports domestic violence if it's going to take 8 hours to get it investigated by police. Nobody calls the police if the police are 8 hours drive away. So having those services on the ground that is making a big difference in a lot of places right around Australia. But it's a great question, thanks.
Yeah, look, I just say, I think we're down to one microphone that works. Look, I think the reason why there wasn't a lot of debate was because there is, I think, pretty general agreement across the political spectrum about what we're trying to achieve. I mean, everyone recognises there have been colossal failures in policy, and some of that policy was let's say all of that policy was very well intentioned. It doesn't matter, hasn't worked. So we've got to change the paradigm. I think everyone's committed to that. The difficulty is getting the policies that will work. This is a classic example of the difference I was pointing out earlier between principle and policy. Addressing Indigenous disadvantage, the big principle, everyone's committed to that. How you actually do it, well, a lot of policies have been tried with great intentions and have been complete flops. Some of them, if you believe Noel Pearson, and I take a lot of notice of Noel, have been actually counterproductive. But nonetheless, I think there's enormous goodwill in Canberra and across the nation as far as the Indigenous communities are concerned. The question is getting the policies that will actually make a difference. And I know Tanya and I don't think have any difference between us in terms of what we'd like to achieve. And really it's a question of getting the policies that will work. That's why it hasn't been a slanging match in the election.
Well, miraculously, I think we've actually seen some principle emerge here tonight after all, which I was not expecting, but I'm very heartened by. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the Return of the Politics in the Pub series. Please thank our very special guest. Number of beers or wines. You can't be bothered counting out the change in your pocket. You just hand over a note, hope for the best, hope the bartender's on the straight and narrow. So when you get that change, there's a little bucket on the bar. It all goes to relieve the Pakistani flood victims, which I think is another area we can all agree on. So empty your pockets, go home full but happy, and thank you very much again for a wonderful night.